Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Today I'm talking about the Scar 15 once again, the 3080 Ti model with 32 gigabytes of RAM, running at 4800 megahertz, and with a 12900H. This is the fastest 15-inch laptop I've ever tested, and it is amazing how much power is able to come out of something that's not so large. So let's just get right into it. First, let me just talk about the design of the build really quickly. I covered a lot of that in the first look, so I don't want to go into a lot more detail than what I've already done. So if you haven't seen this video, take a look at that. But yeah, the top lid is made out of a nice premium feeling aluminum. I like it. I like it a lot. I like the design. I like the Scar logo on it, and I like how it's kind of the RGB on the outside is more of an outline compared to how it looked on the previous version. I do like the ROG styling going out through it. So moving on towards the keyboard deck, I really like this material. It's like a soft plastic. It almost feels like an acrylic. I've had some other people kind of like touch and hold it and feel it, and they were all really impressed, and they didn't even know it was plastic. So I mean, I think this is a good material choice. There's not much keyboard flex, and I never once felt like I missed an aluminum build. There wasn't once when I was asking for it. And also at the back, there's this little ROG section. I forgot what the marketing material is called for it, but you can actually take off the side panel. It's magnetized, and it comes with three different ones in the box, and so you could customize it and choose it to the way you want. If you wanted a 3D printed, or you could use one of the three. I don't know. That's kind of cool, I guess. I just kept the default one because I like how the translucent one blends in with the actual translucent deck of the keyboard. I mentioned there are some styling differences on the keyboard deck between last year's car and this year's car. I will say once again that I do like it. So since we're still talking about the keyboard deck area, let's just talk about the ports. It's the same as previously. I mean, you can just take a look at the video, and you can kind of see the ports. I don't like sitting here and just talking about all the ports and just naming them off of a spec sheet. That's not what I want this channel to be about. But I will mention that they have this keystone to the right. I forgot what the marketing material it is for it again. I mean, apparently when you plug it in, there's like an NFC chip, and you can set it up in the Armory Crate to do different things with it. I just never really found it useful. To be honest, I'd rather use this area for another port, another USB Type C port, an SD card slot, anything else except for this. If you use a keystone, if that's even what it's called, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how useful it actually is. So then, and the bottom panel is just a plastic, but again, had no issues with the build quality. I never once wished that I had an aluminum build, and this is after coming off of the Razer Blade 17, which I've been using for about 3 weeks. And because it's all plastic, it doesn't get hot. I mean, the outside at least. I was actually running all of my tests, and I was gaming on my lap, which I can't do with any other laptop. It's because of the choice of materials. So I mean, I'm not gonna get mad at a build that uses all plastic, especially when it's done this well. Oh, one thing I want to quickly mention. I do remember last year's Scar did have some creaks when you move it around. This one is solid. It's completely solid when you're moving it, but when you're lifting and closing the lid, I don't really hear anything like I would have heard in the previous model. So I think I think that'll cover the build. Speakers, I think the speakers are very, very good. If you want to hear, I should say, comparison between the Razer Blade 17 and this current Scar 15, I did a speaker test in the first look, so go ahead and take a look at that if you haven't already. I would really like it if you look at all my videos and like and subscribe. It'll mean a lot to me. But the speakers are really good. And what I did with a little bit more testing, there's actually the Dolby settings. And And in there, you can customize and tweak the sound many which ways. And there's a few there's a few options to choose from. I ended up going with the game setting and just lowering the volume to around 90%. I did notice at 100% it did distort at that particular setting, but at 90% I got a really good sound stage. I mean, music sounded good enough. Games were great. It's never going to be as good as a headset. So just keep that in mind. But I was actually really impressed with the speakers, and especially something that's this small, and you could barely even see the speakers. There's a few cutouts there, which I did point out in the first video, and I'll try to show some highlights of that here as well. But no, the speakers are good. Yeah, I guess so. Thermals. They're good, but before I get into that, I just really want to talk about some of the design choices in terms of exhausting some of that heat. A lot of manufacturers exhaust heat around the right. I get it. There's a lot of heat that needs to come out of the system, and it has to go somewhere. But I do feel like when I'm gaming and I'm using my mouse hand, I feel hot air like blowing on my arm, and sometimes it gets a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, blowing on my hand, and it's just one of those things that kind of takes you out of the experience. If you're playing a game and if you're into it, there's nothing like moving your mouse hand close to the laptop and feeling hot air on your hand, and it's a bit uncomfortable. It's maybe it is kind of a minor thing, but I understand there's physics limitations, and hot air needs to get out of the system somehow. So I don't know how much I can knock it, but I did notice it was a bit annoying. And it's not just Asus that does this. MSI's laptops do this a lot too, and many other vendors. One thing I do like about Razer is it's coming out the back and again and against like the display, but you never on the side, so you never feel it. But again, you can't game on your lap with that when it gets way too hot. So I guess pick your poison. So I want to talk about the charger really quickly. It's a 280 watt brick, same as the Razer, and last year's model used a 240 watt brick, but I really want to talk about the size of it. Razer now is using a gallium nitride charger, and from what I saw, Alienware is using a 330 watt charger that's also gallium nitride, and they're significantly smaller. I mean, it's great having such a small laptop, but you got to carry on the big power brick. I feel that's something that they should all move towards next year. And another thing about the charging brick is the actual cord doesn't get long enough. So I find that if I'm sitting, right now I'm sitting on a pretty big table. It's like a dining room table. If I wanted to set up my laptop right here in the center, the cord from the power cord is so short that I actually have to keep it next to me at all times. I can't just hide it on the floor or anything like that. So it kind of creates like a bit of a tripping hazard, and it's just a bit of an inconvenience. And I wish that cord itself would be longer. It'll just make life so much easier, and especially if I'm trying to use my laptop in bed and I'm trying to plug it in, I have to keep the charger like right next to me at all times, and it's just really uncomfortable. I wish the cord was longer in every single laptop. Like the Razer I just came from, the cord was so long I could put the charger on the floor and I could take my laptop anywhere with me, and it's the weight of that power brick isn't dragging me down. I don't know why I'm spending so much time talking about it, but it's annoying to me always, and it has been for years. But I'm just not bringing this up now. So all right, enough on the charger. I get it. So let's just talk about the display now. I think the display is really good. It's sufficiently bright. I can obviously wish for more brightness, but the 240 hertz looks fantastic. The 3 millisecond response time is amazing when playing games. And I feel at 15 inches, it's the perfect size. And the way this laptop is designed, where the hinge sits a little bit more forward than other traditional laptops, so the display is actually closer to your face, and you could kind of get a bit more immersed than you would with typically all their 15 inches. And it's been fantastic. You could wish for a 16 by 10 display. It would have filled in the bottom bezels a lot more. But I mean, I don't know. Sound off in the comments. For games, do you prefer 16 by 9 or 16 by 10? I think as a laptop, personally, 16 by 10 is better. But the moment I turn on a game, I think maybe I'm just hardwired to prefer 16 by 9 because that's how I grew up. Well, I grew up playing 4 by 3 on the CRT. Okay, let me not date myself. But all modern TVs are 16 by 9. Games are predominantly designed for 16 by 9. So for a gaming laptop, I do like 16 by 9, but for everything else, I prefer 16 by 10. So I mean, okay, so this is just my personal opinion, no longer related to the Scar 15 review. So again, let me just move on. The colors are at 100% DCI-P3. I got a colorimeter, it's coming in soon. I have to learn how to use it. It's the SpiderX data color. It doesn't seem like it's difficult. So going forward, you're gonna get some objective analytics on the display. So look forward to that. Get subscribed. And if you like this video, like it. If you don't like it and tell me why. Okay, so let's just talk about the software really quickly. It uses the Armoury Crate software, and it's by far my favorite out of all of the other ones. I do like MSI Center, though it's a really busy software, but overall, I think this is the best. And I like the way the different settings are laid out. There's the Windows setting, which is default that comes with any Windows laptop, but they also have a silent profile. And I did mention in the first look that the silent profile wasn't staying silent. I've had a series of BIOS updates and a series of just other updates, and it seems like it fixed it. The silent profile is actually very, very quiet. I don't really hear the fans kicking in on at all, so that's good. The performance, which I don't typically use, but it's a performance mode, and you can use it if you want to game, but you want to keep the fan noise down a bit. But overall, I'd rather just go to turbo. That's how you get the 150 watts TGP with dynamic boost on the GPU. And I've noticed that I just went to turbo and the fans just started ramping up. Let me go back to silent. So yeah, with turbo, the TGP on the GPU goes up to 150 watts with dynamic boost, and it does boost up to that amount in a lot of games, and a lot of heavy and demanding games, which I'm happy about. And I've noticed the CPU, I'm actually getting better performance on the CPU than I am with the Razer. It was pushing up to 60 watts in first person shooters with low settings and such, while I was only getting 45 watts on the Razer, even the 4K 11900 version. But anyway, so that's turbo profile. That I feel like that's the best bang for buck. There's also the manual mode. I honestly don't recommend using manual mode. I mean, you could crank up all the fans, you could do an overclock and all that stuff, and you could boost the CPU to 80 watts. I honestly feel like it's a setting made for if you want to show off your laptop, if you want to go on Reddit and just kind of boast your scores, but the temperatures get way too hot, and I can just move right into the temps right now. On max, on manual, the CPU was up to like 90, 95. The GPU started pushing to 80, 85, and this is with the overclock and pushing the CPU all the way up, and I just didn't feel comfortable running it. And it got the fans went up to 100%, and it was just too loud. It was just too uncomfortable. But in turbo mode, the CPU, even in Time Spy, which in the CPU section, when I had the Razer, it would thermal throttle immediately until, like I said, I had to raise it up. But this one doesn't. In fact, I haven't seen the CPU thermal throttle in just regular task and playing games with low settings. And it's been pushing like a good 60 watts when it can. And when I was playing Halo and Overwatch, it was definitely doing that. And the GPU max I saw was like around 80 degrees. which is that I'm comfortable with that. I think when I start to get to like 83 is when I get a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm definitely very comfortable with that. So I mean, so that's turbo mode, and that's actually thermals and the software in a nutshell. Okay, so next I want to talk about the battery. I got 5.5 hours, and that was obviously with the max switch on Optimus mode and running on the silent profile with brightness set to about 45 to 50%. And I kept a YouTube video running in the background the entire time, and I just did mundane tasks. I'm testing some other laptops, so I had my spreadsheets open where I was just recording all the different scores I got. I was browsing the web, I was searching for things, I was researching, and pretty consistently, I use a laptop for the most part of the day and pretty heavily. And it died in 5.5 hours. And I also want to mention that I was running at full QHD. If you're running at 60 hertz, you probably could get like 6-7 hours out of this, which is good. I mean, for a gaming laptop, that's good. I mean, this thing's kind of seeming like the entire package. But how does it game? Let's take a look at some of the benchmarks. So with Halo Infinite running at low settings with a 53% scaler, that's really close to 1080p. I got 214 frames per second. I played 4 maps and I recorded the benchmarks in Afterburner, and I took the average of all 4 maps and I came up with 214. On some of the smaller maps, I was getting like 230, 240 frames average, which is incredible. The 1% low was 69. On Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I got 143 FPS at 1080p, and this is running at ultra settings on the for Tomb Raider, the highest settings, I should say. 1080p, I got 143 FPS, and at 1440p, I got 110 FPS. Now on the Scar 15 2021, it doesn't have a mux switch, so you got much lower performance. I got 88 FPS on 1080p and 85 on 1440p, which, so I mean, the mux switch really makes a difference, and I think also the better hardware, more specifically the CPU on the Scar 15 this year. On TimeSpy, on the Scar 15 2021, on the GPU side, I got a 12,562. This is on turbo mode, no overclocking. I want to do an out of box experience. You're free to overclock your own unit and then report on those numbers, but I kind of want to get a good representation of what the average person will get. So with that being said, so the GPU I got 12,562. On the CPU I got 14,708, which is better than what I got from the first look. I had to do a series of driver updates, the BIOS updates, etc., and my scores improved a lot. So the total score was 12,843. And I do want to mention that the CPU score was better than both Razer Blades that I've been testing. And I think that's because they're able to run the CPU at a higher wattage than the Razer. The Razer only maxed out around 45 watts from what I was able to see. On Overwatch, my average FPS was 306, which is insane. That's better than what I got from both Razers, and I think again coming back to the higher wattage. So if you're a competitive player, the Scar is going to be a good choice for you. I can't wait to see how my GE66 does. I ordered it. It's coming in on Monday, so I'm going to do a first look. Okay, so Cyberpunk at 1080p, I got 67 FPS. On 1440p, I got 51 FPS. This is on ultra settings with ray tracing and DLSS quality. On Red Dead 2, this is on the ultra quality with no changes, so just the regular preset. I got 89.99 FPS on 1080p, and I got 73.81 on QHD. And I want to point out that these scores were a little bit less than what I got on the Razer Blade, and I think that has to do with the wattage of the TGP of the GPU. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. On Dying Light 2, I got 67 at 1080p and 48 on QHD. On Borderlands 3, I should say, I got 81.35 frames per second on badass mode, and on very low, I got 151.62. This game taxes the CPU a good amount, so I do like testing this game. All right, so that'll do it. So here are my final thoughts. I mean, I've been enjoying using this. It's been a blast. I love the design for me because I'm not taking this out to meetings and meeting clients um, or working in my corporate job with this. I have my laptop that they provide for that. So this doesn't need to be for me. My laptop doesn't need to be too professional looking. At least not yet. So I love the design of this laptop. I really enjoy using it. I love the QHD panel. I love Armory Crate. I love the silent profile. I love the battery life. It's just been a joy to use, and I do wish the TGP could go up to 165. But based off of the few games that I've been testing, it's not the end of the world. I think 150 watts is way more than sufficient. But what I do like is the CPU is able to run at a higher wattage than from what I've tested so far. I mean, and also this laptop's light. It's like barely 5 pounds, like 5.15 pounds or something like that. I do wish the power brick was smaller. I wish it would move to something like a gallium nitride. But man, I've been really enjoying using this. I enjoyed using the Scar a lot last year, but it didn't have a muck switch, and there were some weird inconsistencies I've been having with it. It just all seems like it's gone with this one. No, this is a really good one, and for me, like this is coming close to being my daily driver. I was going to get the 17-inch, but I kind of decided not to because it turns out that the performance is identical, even though it's a larger chassis. So I think I'm going to go for the GE66 next, and I do have the GE76 coming in with the 12900H soon, and I think I'm going to be focusing on those next. But for now, I really, really like this one. All right, thanks, guys. See you in the next one.